Hi everyone, this short video will talk about the Institutional Review Board. I'll explain briefly what it is, why it's important, and how we will fill out the necessary forms to move forward with our research. The Institutional Review Board is basically an ethical review committee that looks at all research that is done involving humans. And since all of you are working with either students or colleagues, they are all humans, and therefore we have to make sure that we are protecting them as participants in your research. What you'll see here is the exact purpose of the Institutional Review Board here at the College of St. Scholastica. You'll see that the purpose again is just to make sure that all precautions are in place to protect participants in your study. I don't have any concerns about the research that any of you are doing, but once again, we do need to go through this process each time we're engaged in research that involves human subjects. So what you'll need to do is you will need to fill out the Institutional Review Board request form. And what I've done in the next few slides is go through each portion of that just to kind of explain what you need. The first one here is just general information. The researcher is you, so state your name, the date that you're filling this out. The instructor is myself. The title of your research, which you may or may not have even thought of yet, but a title for your research, and then a description of the research topic briefly and your research questions. You will find that you are able to cut and paste in many cases right from your research proposal, or if that doesn't work, you only have to make a few adjustments to make it fit here. The next portion of the form talks about your participants, and that's who you will be doing the study with. How the participants will be selected, in many cases, is they're the students in your classroom. For those of you who aren't working with students, if you're working with colleagues or others, that's where you just state who you're working with or why you selected them, how many of them there are, and then you have to identify who the vulnerable groups are. For most of you, that will be minors if you're working with children. If you are not working with children, elderly, or disabled, if you're just working with colleagues or other professionals, you can just state that in the other section. The next portion of this form is the data collection techniques. This is where you will describe exactly what it is you are going to do in your research study. Again, you can cut and paste this pretty well from your research proposal, but you need to be as specific as possible here, because the way that this works is this proposal or this IRB form will go to the Institutional Review Board Committee, which is a group of about 4 or 5 faculty from the School of Education, and they read through this not knowing much else about your study. So you need to be very specific here and explain what it is that you are going to do. So you may need to add some additional details if they're not thoroughly explained in your research proposal. The next portion of the IRB form asks about benefits and risks to the participants. I find that this is often the most confusing part for us as we continue to work through this process because we don't often think about this. But in terms of how can your participants benefit from your research, you need to think about what might your participants get out of this study that they would not otherwise get. Same thing with the risks, and usually the risks are minimal, but we do need to identify any potential risk that the participants might face. And then you need to address how you're taking efforts to minimize the risks. And that usually includes things like you're keeping names confidential, you're making sure that all of your data is kept confidential, things like that. And you'll notice in the example that I provide that you'll see how risks and benefits are attended to there. Once you've completed your IRB application, it will go to the College of St. Scholastica School of Education IRB committee. Once they have signed off on it, you're able to go ahead with your research. Of course, I will help you along the way with this. You will complete a first draft and I'll take a look at it to make sure it includes everything that it needs to include. And when it's ready to go, we'll make sure it gets to the committee as soon as possible. As always, make sure that you contact me as soon as possible if you have questions. Thanks!